Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of exploring some of your favorites from 2024. Today we're going to be looking at a band who I actually just learned about recently. I think I've seen this song on a couple of best of lists so far. We're looking at the group Giant Walker. The song in question is Silhouettes. Let's dive in. See what Giant Walker is bringing to the table today.
Music.
Got lost in the maze again today. Feels like I'm just withering away.
I like that darkness.
Silhouettes of light and shade bathe me.
That one right there at the halfway point of the progression.
I'm gone. Go home. Wish I could go home.
The compression on the vocals with the acoustic. I was gonna say, it makes me think we're gonna reach something much larger.
All I am seeing smiling. I can't win, and there's no paradise in trying. No, got lost in the maze inside my brain.
So returning back to that more minimal sounds, but bringing in some extra instruments, going with a more of a clean vocal sound rather than compression. A nice way to bring the energy down, but not return it back to that original valley, that lowest point.
Won't take away the paths I've laid that were wrong.
A little hi-hat thing. The cross stick bass lead, yes. Ooh, fun little accent pattern here too. Oh, the little drum accents. I'm all about that.
Yes, I can watch the world drown.
Little jazzy flourishes on the vocal melody. Ooh, kind of like a proggy rhythmic phrasing. We're working with these odd groups of three, I think. But with like this heavy psych melody on top of it. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, we're working with 12 beat phrases overall, so there's another little bit of oddity there. 3 bars of 4. Bass tone underneath all of this. We got that acoustic guitar work, I think, underneath. Those little piano glistens. Ah, I wanted to keep listening though. I mean, that's probably the best problem to have with the song is like, you ended it too early, man. I wanted more of that. And granted, an album would hopefully deliver, right? This is the point of a single, even especially a single, is to get the claws in and to have be like, oh yeah, I want to check out more of that. Um, and I think this song did that expertly. I mean, I want more right now, which makes me feel like I need to go listen to the album. I I don't think that was on my list at all, which is crazy. So I can't believe nobody. Well, maybe I just missed it too. That's possible. Wait, is this it? Oh, it was in my list. Dang. So that was just one of the things I didn't get to last year. My list is sitting at 40 long, and there's some good stuff in here too. So, dang. Well, that might have just been skyrocketed to the top of the list. It won't. Yeah, I probably won't get to it in time for the best of 2024 video that I'll drop on Saturday, but I'll have to listen to that sometime soon because that was just so good. Now, I've just gushed about how much I've enjoyed this. Let's get into some details. What was so great about this? Why am I liking this so much? I think at its heart, it's a simple song, which is a benefit, at least for me personally. I'm a person who likes moderation. I like things that meet in the middle. Granted, I'm also a fan of extremity. I like stupid, simple, dancey pop songs. I like hyper complex technical death metal. The extremes have some cool stuff on them, but generally speaking, if you want to get my attention, you got to walk the road. You can't veer off in any direction. And I think this does that very well. The beginning of the song is vocals on top of acoustic guitar work. The chorus is mostly vocals on top of chords with some fairly straightforward drumming if you pay attention to the accent points. The bridge has some guitar work in it, and we get a little bit of a solo, and then we get some call and response between the band and the vocalist. Then we have a return to the chorus, which is typically what bands do after a bridge. And then we have an outro guitar lick, outro guitar solo. So we have an A, B, A, B, C, B, D, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, it's the moderation. We have this simple, typical structure with a small change to it. And that's actually how a lot of this song feels to me. You may have noticed that my description of many of the sections was accurate, but not true. Yes, technically, the intro is just vocals on top of guitar. But it's a little more than that, isn't it? That guitar work was nice. First of all, 8-chord progression. Most mainstream music uses 2 or 4. The 8 allows for more expression. 4 typically has home, expansion of the home, just more stability basically, usually directing towards tension, and then tension points back to release. You don't have a lot of room to explore more out of that. With 8 chords though, you do. You do need to hit tension eventually if you would want to resolve back onto that 8th or 1st chord, but in between, that's your road. Build whatever path you want to. And they do here. And like I mentioned, I really love that tension at the middle. I think it's the 5th chord of the progression. It implies a sense of darkness that doesn't really bring heavy tension like we'll hear later for the full resolution, but it is something that isn't purely present, which doesn't really have much room in the typical four chord progression. So we have room to focus on this beauty, this elegance. We bring in some darkness. We have a little bit of relief from that into tension, into resolution. It's just this gorgeous lineup of ideas, but there's also flourishy things in there. The guitarist throws in a couple of hammer-on pull-offs to quickly move up to a note and back down. Just kind of creating some flashy movement so it isn't just pure chord progression either. The vocals are given a lot of compression to make them small. It makes this whole section feel very intimate. Now, the chorus I do think is a bit more straightforward. The drums have some flashier ideas going on in them, and there is that pickup note. I think it's the and of two that gives us, I guess it'd be the end of one because it's 7 back and forth hits before landing on the downbeat again. So there is that happens every other bar or so. But the drums, but other than those two elements, it's mostly just chords and pretty straightforward drumming. I do think the chorus is the simplest part of the song, but that back and forth there between the more standard idea and then that rhythmic, almost, I mean, it was higher energy, right? It makes you want to move more. Everything else kind of has like a halftime feel. It's kind of want to bob your head every other beat. And then that comes in and you just like, you got to hit all of them because there's every single beat is emphasized there. And so it is unique. It is not a standard idea that they do there. Again, kind of mixing the two sides. The bridge is technically some guitar work and then a back and forth on the vocals and instruments, but there's some proggy stuff coming in on here as far as metrics go. And we do have a harmonic shift here, a melodic shift in that the notes chosen for the melody are a little bit different than what we heard in the other two sections. So, I mean, it's little changes like this that give it an extra boost of personality, of originality to it all, while still maintaining something that feels on the surface very straightforward, easy to listen to, and has that palatability despite a unique twist on it all. And that is absolutely what I love about this track. It is what I expect. It is a safe, comfortable sound, but it isn't necessarily something that I have expectations for that are met constantly. You know, you listen to your average radio rock song, and, you know, you can usually guess where things are going. There's a template, usually. The only times it really gets shaken up is when a band, well, they kind of innovate a little bit and create a new template that other bands will use for the next few years. And those tend to be pretty exciting and memorable, I think, in the long run. But I like stuff like this that pushes it even further. There's very few sections in here where I was like, oh, that went exactly where I thought. But it also never really leaves that comfortable area either. And I'm a big fan of that. Not to say I don't like being pushed outside of my comfort zone, but when I'm listening casually to music, this is what I want, to be comfortably challenged. And I think that that's just a phenomenal place to be. Now, bringing back the bridge, I'd mentioned there's some metric stuff going on in here. It's still in 4/4, at least judging by when the chord changes and how the melody operates. But instead of 4 bars of 4/4, or 4 bars of anything, to be honest about that, it's 3 bars of 4, which gives it an unusual weightiness. The thing about 4 bars is that it's symmetrical, but it's not too short. If you're looking at 2 bar phrases, that can feel repetitive because it's just this or that. What happened before is very clear in your mind still. Once we get into 8 and 16 bar phrases, I think for your average listener, that tends to be too much information. You have forgotten what happened at the beginning of the phrase. The end doesn't make much sense to you anymore, especially if we are looking at, well, I was going to say melodic information, but I think harmony too. Chord progressions, I think, aren't going to make sense to people at that level. They're going to forget where home was. And maybe I'm just being a bit cynical about that. I honestly have no idea. I've never asked people about this, but it's just a general idea I get from the types of music people listen to and complaints I have heard from a very small sample size. Anytime I've presented more complex music, not even like super complex, just a little more complex than your average pop song, is that they're difficult to follow. And that's sort of the idea that I get. And again, it's based off a very small sample size. I don't want to extrapolate that out to everyone, but once we get past four, four just happens to be the sweet spot. Everything's still recent enough that you can group it all together, but you're not just hearing two things ping pong. And so four, it's also symmetrical, and that's the other important thing. Um, you do two, and you can do two, and two is an even number, and we just have things based off of even symmetrical ideas, and that just tends to be fairly palatable to people. I don't know if that's a psychological thing. I highly doubt that that is just some intrinsic part of the mathematics side of music, but I think people generally just like symmetrical things, especially today, modern times. I think it would be a really interesting alternate future if instead of the 4-bar phrase, we had developed the 6-bar phrase of 3 and 3. Still symmetrical, but not even. I think that would have been pretty cool. In fact, I kind of want to write stuff like that now. Anyways, we kind of get a dose of that here with the 12-bar phrase. I don't really know how to group this up, other than I would probably say 3-bar. Yeah, 3 bars, 3 bars, and 3 bars. No, no, 3 bars of four. That's what it is. Okay, dude, I'm overthinking that. 3 bars of four is what we're looking at here, which is a 12-beat phrase. That's what I meant. Um, but yeah, so what we get though is something that feels normal because it's in 4/4. So we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. The vocals come in at 1, 2, 3, 4. We have another bar of vocals, and then rest. I was like, okay, something's a little off here. We feel like we're launching out of the rest a little early. But yeah, it's because we're missing a whole bar. But it ends up feeling very natural once I understand what's going on, too. And I think they pulled that off really well. It actually took me a while before I realized we were in 12. I just recognized that something was off, but I couldn't quite place it yet. And they do a great job of smoothing that over. And again, it's the palatability versus complexity. And I think, again, they just do a really great job of showcasing both of them. I'm honestly curious if anyone picked that up before I mentioned it. I know there's quite a few of you in the audience who are more more musically inclined, and you probably did pick it up because it's not like it's obscured really heavily, but I do think that they do a great job of glossing over it, and I'd wager that there's quite a few people who aren't musically inclined who didn't feel like that section was off at all. And I think that's one of the strengths of this group. I also mentioned at this point that we had a different idea going on melodically. The vocal melody chooses new notes here that move away from an indie rock vibe that I was getting as far as the harmony is concerned into heavy psych. The heavy part definitely comes, I think, from the sound of it all, the electric guitars and all that, the drums, the belting of the vocals, but definitely a psychedelic edge here that isn't present anywhere else. It makes the bridge feel distinct, and yet it still works because a lot of these sounds have been introduced in the chorus previously. We just changed up a little bit of the energy and the harmony, the chords that we're playing. This is one of those situations where I was not expecting them to go in this direction, but they certainly set up all the stones so that when they built on it, it made perfect sense. That metaphor kind of fell apart a little bit. But I hope you understand what I'm saying there, is that it doesn't feel completely out of place. It just isn't normally what bands would do. And I think that makes it work very well. It allows them to put their stamp on things to say, look, this is us. We're doing this our way. Makes it feel a bit unique, but it doesn't feel random. It's not like a band that would do this and then just wildly go in this direction, which is unique, sure, but does it make sense in the song? And usually, for me at least, those types of songs don't make sense. But this one does, and I really enjoyed that. Um, The last thing I want to bring up, though, is just fantastic production in general, with a key focus here being the bass guitar. Honestly, I love the bass guitar so much on this. I mean, the best showcase of it, I think, is moving into the bridge with the cross stick drum and the light guitar work and the bass being the prominent sound here. It's just a big, meaty sound, and it works well at dominating the space without being overpowering. And it allows this space above it to be present and sort of empty at the time for the electric guitar to fill later. And it allows the song to feel like it's growing while still putting emphasis on this instrument that has been prominent enough in the mix to have been heard, but not really a lead instrument up until this point. And it's just really great balancing of everything. It's like, yeah, we'll give you lead right here, but we're also going to create space. We're going to carve it out for the guitar later. So it doesn't feel like it's overpowering. It's not like it's wedging itself into this song. That space has always been there. It's just nothing there's now. So the bass is what is prominent. But the drums feel great, crisp. They have a nice sound to them. The acoustic guitar and the electric guitar sound both work. I love the contrast between the high energy and low energy that we get, especially from the electric guitar coming in. I think the drums also help with that, especially in that first chorus, but the production on that first verse as well, with the compressed vocals kind of making them feel smaller, allows us to explode even more when we open that vocal channel up alongside the new instrumentation. Um, I think that's it. Oh, the acoustic guitar though, that is also a very crisp sound. It is just, it's great, and I love how it can sit under the electric guitar at times and still be present. It doesn't feel like it's being drowned out at all, but it never feels like it's overpowering it either. And that's something I've called out in the past. It's part of a suspension of disbelief thing. I think anytime that you're going to introduce an acoustic instrument with an overdriven one, I don't know what kind of magic goes into the production here, or why I notice this in some songs and not others, but there are definitely times. Oh, this also goes into like soft singing too. Anytime you might pair that with a distorted guitar or a synth, basically anything that would be electric, especially if it's compressed and it has that overdrive to it, that's going to make it imply a level of volume, a very high level of volume. And you pair that with an acoustic guitar or soft vocals or something, and you're supposed to hear a volume disparity between these two, or at least that's implied, but the production doesn't have that. Sometimes I feel like, oh no, dude, that's wrong. Why is this instrument so loud against the electric guitar? And other times it just feels normal. And at least for this case, it felt right. And I think part of that is because the acoustic guitar is typically quieter and a supporting instrument to the electric guitar, which tends to play lead. And I think having that volume difference between the two, or at least the presence difference, makes all of the difference here in believing that these two instruments are part of this song. Let me go find some lyrics on this, and then we're going to wrap this one up. I'd love to see somebody else's take on an interpretation for this. I have my own, but I don't have a lot of conviction behind it. It's a rough guess at what I think the song's about. The first stanza though says, "I got lost in the maze again today. Feels like I'm just withering away. There's silhouettes of light and shade. They bathe me in the faults I make till I'm gone." To me, it's a song, or it's a stanza about um, feeling directionless in life and only focusing on the times that you've made mistakes. I really like this idea of feeling lost, of bathing in the silhouettes of both light and shade. There is no light or darkness around her, just the images, the illusions of light and shade. So there's nothing real in her vicinity. I like that idea right there. But I like pairing this with the compressed vocals too, to make it feel like they're distant. This is a person who seems disengaged with everything, lost and alone. Musically, I think it represents that really well. We do have the lyrics here that fall in line with that. And move right before we move into the chorus, there is the line, "I wish I could go home." So again, a distance thing. The chorus says, tripping me, why can't I unsee you smiling? This is the only time a you is brought into it, and she wishes to see this person not smiling. So frowning, maybe it's a regular straight face, I don't know. It feels antagonistic though. Part of me was wondering if this is a memory. Maybe this is somebody that she had a falling out with, and all she can remember is the good times, which makes the distance between them hurt even more now. But it could be an antagonism, an antagonist, where this other person is smiling because our narrator is constantly lost and tripping up on themselves, and they're getting pleasure out of seeing the narrator at a low point. I'm not sure which one it is because there is no other line in here that references this you. Everything else is about the I and my place and how low I am. And so I think without knowing more about the lyricist, or maybe what the song is about personally to them, there really isn't much of a way to figure out what's going on with that line. Then it says, I can't win and there's no paradise in trying. I find that to be interesting because, again, I find duality in this line. There's no paradise in trying. Paradise is a weird word for this. I think no joy in trying, I think, would be more directed, have a very narrow meaning of that line. But no paradise. Paradise is both a joyous, carefree area, but it also feels like a destination. And I think it leads to a duality here where trying is both something that doesn't bring any joy to the person, but also doesn't seem like something that is meaningful in any way, that there's no decisiveness to it. There's no end goal to trying. It's just simply something that must be done because I'm here, and why would I want to be here anymore? It makes it feel both trivial and futile at the same time because of that one word choice. It's smart. It's really smart. Um, got lost in the maze. Maybe I've been left out to decay. Surrendering won't take away the paths that I've laid that were wrong. Again, focusing on the poor decisions of the past and realizing that giving up to them doesn't make them go away. And I think that once again, it's a little bit of duality there. This is just really elegantly written. I want to point that out. It's both the idea that if I fess up and point out these bad decisions I've made, I still have to deal with them. But it also states that giving up won't erase the past either. The only thing you can do is take a step forward with your past intact. There's no repairing it, there's no asking for forgiveness for it, there's none of that. You just have to get back on the horse and try again, regardless of what the past is. And again, hingent on one word. It's so good. Maybe I had a better grasp on this than I thought. The bridge says, I could dig a nice hole in the ground, but then I guess I can't watch the world drown. Not too sure about this, puts a little bit more pessimism in it. Basically says that if I'm this low, then the world should be too, and I'd like a view when the world decays and reaches my low. And then if not this, then what? I'm not too sure about that one. And then we end up back at the chorus. This is definitely a song about feeling low. Not sure why, not sure who is responsible for this. Maybe no one is. Maybe it literally is just the narrator's bad choices, but that could also be gaslighting. That they have been convinced that where they are, they deserve to be because of their poor choices in the past. And maybe they haven't actually made any poor choices, and it's this other person that's smiling as they watch them at this low, knowing that they honestly shouldn't be here. They're actually better than this. I don't know. Like I said, it's very vague. Um, and I kind of do want a little bit more information here. I think even with a little more context, I would understand that bridge a little bit more with the if not this, then what, and the idea of watching the world drown. Those two sections feel a bit more pessimistic about the situation, then I think everything else leads on to. It's not necessarily a song that feels optimistic, and there's not really much hope left in here. Although musically, I think the bridge is rather hopeful as it has energy to it that the rest of the song doesn't really have. But I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a person who is drowning in their despair either. They're just at a low point in life. And it isn't until the bridge when it feels like they've given up entirely. And again, musically, the bridge feels like the biggest point where they're actually getting some energy to take that step forward. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. That one feels opposite. But again, I'm curious what other people's interpretation is of this track. These, though, are just my thoughts on Giant Walker's Silhouettes. Let me know what your thoughts were, if you had a different opinion on this, if there's anything you need to correct me on, if I misspoke. If you just have any thoughts about the song in general, please put all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.